Welcome back to Education Matters. Did you correctly answer A, 20%? That's right. Even though our schools and our state overall is becoming increasingly diverse, with more than half of the students being of color, our teaching workforce is still overwhelmingly white, about 80%. We're back to talk more about the state budget with two leading reporters who cover the General Assembly and education news in general. First, we have Colin Campbell. Colin is with the News and Observer and also the Insider, will be the new editor of that publication. And we have Jess Clark. Jess is with WUNC Radio, covers education for WUNC. So thank you both for being here. And I have on the screen, by the way, I have your Twitter handles. If you are a political person, you need to follow Colin Campbell at Raleigh Reporter. It's a good follow. And Jess, certainly, if you're interested in education specifically, Jess is also a great one. So look for there on the chyrons. But Colin, let me ask you. You've been following this thing pretty closely. How'd this sort of the compromise come together? I mean, it's always kind of interesting. Sort of the Senate has their version, the House, and sort of what the horse trading goes on. What were you picking up as far as what were the I don't know, sort of the big issues they had to get through?
You know, I think the big things were obviously tax cuts. The House wanted smaller tax cuts. That, of course, on the education side frees up more money for other spending. The Senate wanted bigger tax cuts. That leaves you with less revenue to work with. So that had to be worked out, and they kind of came out in the middle with that and sort of pushing off the tax cut plan until next year. And then on the teacher raise side of things, the House really wanted to focus more on the veteran teachers. The Senate has been pushing for a while now that they want teachers to hit the top of the pay scale at about 15 years in. The idea being that that's sort of similar to other professions. You don't have to wait 25 years in the job to get at the top of the pay scale. The House seems to have won that battle to some degree. The raises seem to focus on teachers with 17 to 23 years of experience will be getting the biggest raises, but across the board, everybody gets something. So that's sort of where things stand on that side and where they came out after a few weeks of negotiation.
Did you think this? I mean, did it? You know, I remember. I think you were covering it then too. It was 2 years ago that it stretched into September. And when the budget first came out and I saw the number, really the tax cut number was at that point it was about a $600 million difference. And I'm thinking, how are they going to get closer? But like I said, it was like I guess of a combination. Was it surprising to you that it moved fairly quickly behind the scenes?
Yeah, you know, after the year where they went into September and we had to keep having temporary budgets just to keep state government running through the summer, to actually be in a position where they can hit the June 30th deadline to get a budget this year is a little bit surprising. But I think they agreed to a lot of stuff before they started the process, so they are getting a little better at this whole negotiating thing amongst Republicans.
There you go. Well, Jess, education is always front and center. It's one of the single largest investments that the state makes. So what were the key things you were watching as an education reporter as the budget, first as it was introduced and then as we got to what are really going to be the final budget this week?
Yeah, I think teacher raises were one of the biggest things. That's something that everyone pretty much keeps their eye on in education. There was the budget, I think the increase in education spending, about a third of that increase is going towards teacher raises, and those range from 0 to 7%. So if you're just entering your career as a teacher, you will make the same as teachers who entered the profession last year. And then, as Colin said, the people towards the middle and end of their career are going to make larger increases, up to 7%, so several $1,000 increase.
Right. What else are you looking at in terms of now? Is it sort of okay? Now we'll have it. I mean, what are the other pieces as a reporter and covering education? Are you covering now? Or are you planning on covering as part of it?
I think the principal pay system overhaul is really interesting. As Catherine was saying, North Carolina is at the very bottom of the nation in terms of principal pay. I think we're battling it out with West Virginia for the lowest principal salaries in the whole. That's not
a good place to be. I'm just guessing, right?
This budget would significantly boost the floor for principal pay. So right now, the average principal pay in North Carolina is about $60,000. This would boost it to about $70,000. And just the beginning, the base pay for a principal in the budget plan is, I think, about $61,000 a year. Right now, you can work 15 years before you hit 60K as a principal in North Carolina.
Wow. Colin, let me ask you this. There was obviously some controversy as the Senate finished with their 3 a.m. budgets. I think you just filed a story that all those cuts, we had Senator Erica Smith Ingram on the show talking about it, were all reversed, right?
Yeah, and I think some of that ends up being a bargaining chip. You put a lot of things in the budget that the other chamber doesn't like, and then you get some more of what you want when you agree to take that stuff out. And of course, that was put in at the last minute and sort of perhaps a bit of retribution to Democrats for prolonging the debate. Certainly, Erica Smith Ingram's district up in northeastern North Carolina was hard hit, but the Eastern North Carolina STEM summer program back in the budget. Funding is back for some of the early college high schools up in that area. So she's very happy. I talked to her just the other day about how things come out, and I think she actually voted for the budget when it came through the Senate.
Did you sense, you mentioned that about sort of payback. I mean, you sense you kind of look through and there's some things that kind of jump out. The UNC School of Law was one, seemed kind of interesting. There was I've heard myself a lot of discussion about these district office cuts, sort of targeted at a few superintendents that maybe they wish would stop talking about the cuts. Did you pick up on those same kinds of feelings?
There's a little bit of that, and certainly there's a number of things in the budget that are clearly aimed at Governor Roy Cooper and taking away from stuff from him. His office oversees an education grant program that's being taken away from him and put into the Department of Public Instruction. So that's another thing there where you're seeing some efforts to take things from the Democrat and give them to a department controlled by a Republican.
What else on the school choice was sort of a hallmark of this budget? What are you looking at?
The education savings accounts, those made it into the final budget
First time
deal.
we've ever had them here in North Carolina.
First time we've had them in North Carolina. If you don't know what they are, they're kind of like vouchers. So education savings accounts, they have them in about, I think, 5 other states in the U.S. They're kind of like the crown jewel of school choice. So basically, instead of putting your kid on a bus, they go to public school, the parent gets $9,000 a year to spend on their child's education, and that can go to public school, it can go to a private school, it can go towards educational experiences, transportation.
Well, we'll watch for your coverage on that, because unfortunately we are out of time. We're going to have to dig a lot more into those things, but look, we appreciate Colin. Thanks so much for being here. Jess, thank you. Thank you for covering and helping us all understand. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
After the break, this week's Leadership Spotlight.